All right. Hello, everyone. We just had a wonderful tour. I was joined by our speaker, Melissa Mark-Viverito, and a number of our colleagues visiting Southside Design and Building. A great example here of the work that's being done to not just protect industrial and manufacturing jobs, but to continue to build out this crucial part of our economy. So it is a beautiful day, and it is a very life-affirming day to see the new look of industrial and manufacturing employment in this city. And this is the beginning of a new phase in the work that my administration is doing in close partnership with the City Council to build upon these successes and really secure our industrial and manufacturing base for the future. And I will say it at the outset, and I'll say it in the course of this discussion. Part of what's so exciting about this initiative is this is about good jobs. From time to time, you may have heard me talk about income inequality. You may have heard of me talk about the tale of two cities, just once or twice. This is one of the antidotes. Quality jobs, good paying jobs, the kind of jobs that someone can actually take care of a family with. And that's what we're seeing in this building behind us today. And that's what we intend to foster all over the city. We saw in this building small firms doing great work, cutting edge work, work that connects to the extraordinary economy of New York City and the metropolitan area. Part of the secret of the success here is the work that is being done feeds a huge economy in New York City and the metropolitan area with the kind of products that can only be provided here locally with high quality craftsmen and craftswomen doing work that clients need in real time. It can only be done in a place like this. We see the innovation, the creativity, the ingenuity at work here, all classic New York City traits. And we've seen the concept of made in New York City come to life today. And we look forward to many more examples like this. I want to acknowledge, before going forward, a number of folks who deserve a lot of praise, starting with our hosts today, Brian Coleman and Cassandra Smith of the Greenpoint MDC. GMDC properties are literally a national model for modern manufacturing in urban communities, and their excellent efforts are paying off. I want to thank our host at Southside Design and Building, Sam Morris, who told us the story of the work that they've been doing and how all of their employees are well paid. All of their employees are from the 5 boroughs, which is exactly what we want to see. I want to thank the members of my administration here who worked very hard on this new policy. Of course, our Deputy Mayor for Housing and Economic Development, Alicia Glenn, City Planning Chair Carl Weisbrod, the President of the Economic Development Corporation, Maria Torres Springer, our Deputy Commissioner at Small Business Services, Greg Bishop, and our Director of the Office of Environmental Remediation, Dan Walsh. I want to thank the Deputy Borough President of Brooklyn, Diana Reyna, my former colleague from the Council. Thank you for joining us. And I have to tell you, this work has been going on for a substantial amount of time, a lot of hard work put in by advocates, by service providers, environmental organizations. A lot of people care deeply about getting manufacturing and industrial policy right. Many people contributed to this product today. Too many to name, but I do want to name the folks who are here today and thank them for being a part of this. Adam Friedman of the Pratt Center, David Ehrenberg of the Brooklyn Navy Yard, Carlos Shishura of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, Ben Dulchin of ANHD, Leah Archibald of Evergreen, and Liz Luskin of the LIC, the Long Island City Partnership. Thank you to all of you. What we saw in the building today, and this firm we visited has been in business since 2007 here, and they came over here because a classic recent New York City story, their rent tripled where they were before in Williamsburg. And that story has become too common for industrial and manufacturing businesses. They're doing a good business, they're paying good wages, but they get knocked out by the high cost of rent. And when you think about what this city needs, there's many things we need. Well, to make everything else work, we need good paying jobs. So we have to always be able to find solutions for businesses that are ready, willing, and able to keep growing in New York City but need the right space. This is something I know Speaker Mark Viverito and all of our colleagues in the City Council care deeply about because they've heard these stories from businesses. They've heard it from the folks employed by those businesses. Our team and the council team have been very committed to getting this right. And we have a commitment in part also because we know the history of this city. For centuries, our industrial and manufacturing base was part of what made New York City great. It was what made possible this open city, this city for people from everywhere and all backgrounds to come together and find economic opportunity, especially immigrants, and including many people who didn't have the blessing of as much education as they might have liked, but they still were able to find a good quality job. We face today the same challenge. We're working every day to make sure our young people get all the education that they look forward to. But we know there has to be a mix of jobs in any healthy economy, including for folks who don't happen to have a college degree. And this is part of how we do it, by keeping our industrial and manufacturing base strong. We also are sober about the fact the world has changed. Technology has changed things. Globalization has changed things. Manufacturing today looks very different than it did even just a few short decades ago. Today, you're going to find a lot more 3D printing shops than you're going to find sugar refineries. It's just a very different economy, but the imperative is the same: economic diversity and maximum opportunity for our people. And we know that even with all these changes, our industrial sector is still crucial to the economy of New York City, employing more than 500,000 people, over 15% of our private sector workforce. So we have to protect this sector and build upon it. And with our partners in the council, we are proud to present today a 10-point plan to grow our manufacturing sector in every part of the city, and to look at and act upon the kinds of new imperatives we face, the new skills that need to be developed, the new technology that needs to be integrated, and the fact that there's only so much land to go around and real pressure in terms of rents. And that's crucial to how we've created a vision of protecting industrial spaces for the future, recognizing those challenges. Our plan will generate more than 20,000 new jobs over the next 10 years, 20,000 new jobs over the next 10 years, and will support the jobs that exist already today. Today, we're announcing $115 million in new investments, building upon the $400 million already at work that has been previously announced. And that work is already paying off, creating new spaces for jobs at places like the Brooklyn Navy Yard and the Brooklyn Army Terminal, and allowing us to support businesses in their growth with a lot of tailored services and support. That $400 million already at work, we're adding $115 million more. And what's it going to allow us to do? First, it's going to allow us to strengthen our industrial business zones, protecting them from falling prey to a hot real estate market. Again, we know what happens when protections aren't in place, and you can just go a short ways away to Williamsburg and see what happens. In the space of just a few years, businesses supporting thousands of jobs were lost to developers. And what happened in the place was we saw luxury housing, we saw hotels. We didn't see those businesses get a space in that community to replace them. They had to look elsewhere. We have to stop that kind of undermining of our industrial businesses. And this plan will end that negative trend. Because of this plan, industrial business zones will remain and must remain havens for job-creating industrial businesses. It's as simple as that. I want to send a clear message to the developers of this city. If you're buying land in an industrial area, if you're buying land in an IBZ, plan on creating an industrial business, because that's our vision for these areas. Now, if you're a developer and you want to build a hotel or a mini storage facility, you will now need the permission of the city, a special permit from the city to do so. It will be a very serious process, and the process that will come with a lot of rigor and a lot of scrutiny from the community. From here on out, the administration and the council are absolutely unified in this position. We won't support any private applications to build housing in IBZs. We will not consider private applications for housing in IBZs because we have to protect the jobs that exist. That's point one. Point two, we're creating even more space for new and growing businesses. Among other initiatives, we're investing $64 million towards a new $150 million public-private loan fund. We'll issue loans to nonprofit developers who will in turn create 400,000 square feet of affordable space for industrial businesses. So the point is, just as we are committed to affordable housing, we know we have to foster more and more affordable space for businesses that will create good jobs. And outside of the industrial business zones, we're pioneering ways for housing and industrial businesses to exist alongside each other in a live-work model. Third key pillar here, we'll continue to train the city's workforce in skills that modern manufacturing demands, working with employers to determine what they need and building our training programs to match that need and making sure that leads to, again, high-quality, good-paying jobs. This is how we protect the businesses, this is how we protect the jobs, and this is how we protect our future. And we ensure that New York City continues to be a place where there's ever more opportunity for people of all backgrounds, all skill levels, to get the decent jobs they deserve. You're going to hear from some of my colleagues in a moment, but just a few words in Spanish. Estamos invirtiendo más de $500 millones para proteger, promover y ayudar a crear empleos industriales y así asegurar que todos los neoyorquinos tengan oportunidades para el éxito. Nuestro sector industrial y de manufactura ofrece a muchos un camino hacia la clase media, en especial a los inmigrantes y a las personas sin un diploma universitario. With that, again, she speaks much better Spanish than me. The council has been adamant about the importance of putting together a forward-looking policy on these issues. The Speaker and I have talked many times about what it would take to craft a truly balanced policy. I want to thank her for her partnership and her commitment. Speaker of the City Council, Melissa Mark Viverito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and you've acknowledged all of those that are here. I do want to recognize my colleagues that are here, Councilmember Greenfield, Councilmember Levin, Councilmember Richards, Councilmember Lander, and Councilmember Espinal. And it really has been a great partnership as the City Council has engaged with your administration to really be here today and be able to announce this plan to protect our industrial business zones and create greater opportunities for these emerging businesses and to create great middle-class jobs. So good morning to everyone, and thanks for being here. New York City's industrial manufacturing sectors are crucial to our economy, providing 530,000 strong, well-paying jobs for hardworking New Yorkers across the city. For many families and immigrant New Yorkers, industrial jobs are a gateway to the middle class and provide much-needed economic stability. Our city's manufacturing and industrial sectors are crucial to working families. In fact, more than 61.5% of these jobs are located outside of Manhattan. 62% of the workforce are people of color, and nearly half are foreign-born. Approximately 63% of industrial and manufacturing sector jobs are available to individuals who do not have a college degree. After many years of decline, our industrial and manufacturing sectors are growing with the potential to employ even more working families. Yet our city's antiquated industrial policies have failed to keep up, not providing sufficient protections for essential industry and failing to provide a framework for the growth of job centers across New York City. The Industrial Action Plan closes those gaps and modernizes our industrial policy to better support manufacturing sectors as engines of economic opportunity for New York City. Today's plan is the culmination of the City Council's advocacy and recommendations outlined in our November 2014 report, Engines of Opportunity. And here I definitely want to give a particular shout out to our Land Use Director, Rajuman, who was really instrumental in helping us put that together. That report that we issued in November 2014 highlighted strategies to reinvigorate our manufacturing zones for the 21st century. As a result, today's plan will strengthen and protect our city's core industrial areas by increasing land use protections against tourist hotels and personal mini storage facilities, creating new mixed-use zoning tools, and support mission-driven nonprofit industrial developers. We're also making clear today that the city will not support private rezonings and IBZs to build housing. Together, these policies will ensure the mayor, we're going to keep reinforcing it. It's a very important point. Together, these policies will ensure existing manufacturing businesses and new businesses have the space they need to thrive, preserving and creating good jobs in New York City. It also helps move the manufacturing sector to the 21st century by helping firms access advanced technologies and opening new career centers to connect New Yorkers directly with industrial employers. The New York City Council has been a staunch supporter of industrial business zones. In the fiscal 2015 budget, the council allocated $830,000 for industrial business solution providers. And this year, after negotiations with the council, the administration added baseline funding of $1.5 million for the industrial business solution providers. This essential funding will provide financial and technical assistance to manufacturing firms and help firms become efficient in their workspace and help them stay and thrive in the city. From food and fashion manufacturing to metal fabrication and film production, this plan will spur the growth of industrial and manufacturing businesses across the city and support infrastructure and services that are critical to our city's economy. I want to thank our Land Use Chair, David Greenfield, and Zoning Subcommittee Chair Donovan Richards, and all the other council members I've mentioned here today for their hard work and advocacy in making this plan a reality, and to the many organizations and groups that have labored over the years to make sure this sector of the economy is not left behind. I do also want to give particular acknowledgement to the partnership with the mayor and with Deputy Mayor Glenn. This work would not have happened without their conviction that the 500,000 people who work in the industrial sector deserve our attention, and that we need to bring to bear all of our policy tools, from land use to workforce development, to ensure that we protect and grow these jobs. Just a couple of words in Spanish. Los sectores industriales y manufactureros de nuestra ciudad son cruciales para nuestra economía, pues proveen 530,000 empleos para neoyorquinos. Hoy anunciamos el Plan de Acción Industrial para modernizar nuestra política industrial y apoyar al sector manufacturero como motor de oportunidad económica en la ciudad de Nueva York. Este plan protegerá y fortalecerá nuestras áreas industriales, lo que permitirá que tengan espacios disponibles para progresar y mantener y crear buenos empleos. Thank you very much.
So I want you to hear from some of the elected officials, and they all share a passion for this subject matter. We're going to start with the chair of the Land Use Committee, who's looking at the big picture and certainly understands how crucial it is to have a consistent citywide policy in this area. Chair David Greenfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Speaker. And today really is a great day for the city. It's a very exciting day for the City Council. As the Speaker mentioned, this has been a big priority of ours. Last year, this month, we released the Engines of Opportunities report that really laid out a framework for the vision that we have of protecting industrial business zones and really protecting these jobs. And for us, really in the council, I think we look at it from a neighborhood by neighborhood vantage point. And the most important thing that we think we're doing today is we're protecting these jobs. We're also protecting the integrity of these neighborhoods. And I especially want to thank, of course, Raju Mann, who's our land use director, but also Brian Paul and James Lloyd, who are very involved in the Engines of Opportunity report, as well as our counsel, Dylan Casey, and Amy Levitan, who were both very involved in the full-day hearing that we had back in May on this particular issue. The most important thing to us, really, and you're going to hear us say it a lot today, because the most important thing to us really is the message to developers that you're not building residential housing and industrial business zones. And the reason that's so important is because, quite frankly, for the last few years, what we've seen is rampant speculation in these areas. So the reason that people get squeezed out is because between the brokers and the developers and the folks who are marketing these things, they try to convince people, yes, you should go into an IBZ and you should buy property because you can eventually make a lot of money building residential. There's a lot of ways to make a lot of money in New York City, but you can't make it on the backs of the hardworking men and women who are relying on these middle-class jobs. And so I think that's really the most significant thing that we're doing today, and that's really what we're so excited about. I do want to recognize, though, that it's something unique, really, that we haven't seen in quite a few years, which is the unique partnership that we have between the Speaker and the Council and the Mayor, who work so closely together, as well as the different agencies. There's a lot of agencies in the city of New York. They don't always talk to each other. In this case, not only do they talk to each other under Mayor Bill de Blasio, but they work together. And so I especially want to give a shout out to Deputy Mayor Alicia Glenn, and of course to our wonderful Commissioner and Chair of City Planning, Carl Weisbrod, who both worked very closely along with EDC to make this happen here today. And so we're really grateful for that. And thank you for your leadership here today. We're incredibly grateful. And the final point that I want to make is that when we look at what's happening today is we're really sending a very clear message through the special permit process that the purpose of an industrial business zone, I know this is going to sound crazy to some people, but the purpose of an industrial business zone is to do industrial business. That's right. That's why we call them industrial business zones. So if you want to build a hotel, God bless you. It's a big city. There's plenty of places to build hotels, but it really should not be an industrial business zone. If you want to build storage facilities, there's a wonderful state called New Jersey where you should build your storage facilities. But for some reason you want to do it in New York City, we certainly are not welcoming you in these industrial business zones. And finally, we're going to take a close look, and I know that City Planning is already looking at North Brooklyn as an example, and our colleague Councilman Marianosa's district, at the idea of a creative economy district where folks can do things like office space along with manufacturing, and look at some innovative ideas and how we can build this up. So in the long term, we can protect these jobs and we can protect these communities. So today is a great day, and to borrow a term from our mayor, it's a historic day. And the reason it's historic is because government came together and is really working for our communities, and I'm really excited about that. I want to thank everyone who was involved for their leadership. Thank you.
I want to thank David Greenfield for affirming my word choice today. I want to hear from folks who represent this district and understand the challenges that these pressures have created in terms of protecting these jobs. They understand it from the front line. First, Council Member Steve Levin.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. I want to really acknowledge Deputy Mayor Glenn and her team, as well as Chair Weisbrod, his team, and President Torres Springer and your team for the amazing work that you guys put into coming up with this framework. On the council side, as the speaker said, Raju Man and the land use staff, Brian Paul, have put so much work into this. I want to give a special acknowledgement to my chief of staff, Rami Metal, who's been focused like a laser on this issue for years. Mayor, this is what we've been asking for. This is what the industrial community has been asking for years. These types of protections to protect the integrity of our IBZs, to protect the boundaries of our IBZs, to say that these non-industrial uses like hotels, big box stores, that they need a special approval, that they can't just be done as of right, and that's not what we want to see as we move forward, as we're supporting our economy here in New York City, our industrial economy, our creative economy, on into the 21st century. That integrity needs to be protected, and this blueprint is a way to move that forward. So, Mayor, Speaker, thank you so much for focusing on this issue and for really dedicating yourself and your staff's time to it. This is going to go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. Next, I want to say that Joe Lenthal not only knows this area so well and has represented it for so long and so well, that he is the dean of our city delegation in Albany. We thank you for that dangerous mission. Brooklyn delegation in Albany. But the good news is that a long time ago when this facility was threatened, Joe saw its potential way, way ahead of the curve and decided to protect it. And now there's lots of people who have good jobs because he saw what was possible. So we're going to give you a special round of applause and thanks. Joe Lenthal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't try to speak in Spanish.
Wise man.
Yiddish, maybe?
Pero yo puedo hablar español. So I just want to say that this is a great day. And the reason it's a great day is not because I had a vision 25 years ago. Nobody could have foreseen what was going to go on in the development of Brooklyn, especially the housing development, and how it would take off, and how we would squeeze out industry and commercial development. Don't forget that, Mr. Mayor. Commercial development was squeezed out too. Not intentionally, you know, I'm not going to criticize Mayor Bloomberg because of the 2005 rezoning for our neighborhood, because I think it was a good thing in the long run. But nobody realized at that time that the industrial scene was going to change as well as the commercial scene, except some really smart people like Carlos Casura of the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce and David Ehrenberg and others from Brooklyn who, and the Evergreen and the Greenpoint Chamber of Commerce, because we took a trip to the former administration's City Planning Commission, Mr. Weisbrod, and tried to convince them that a mistake was made and we had to tweak the zoning, like the mayor is doing now. And what does that mean? We wanted them to take into consideration that there was a new industrial development going on, not the old, as the mayor suggested, and new commercial development, technical development. All of the techies that live in Williamsburg and Greenpoint have to go elsewhere. They can't live in this neighborhood. All of the industry that was here that were renters are gone. They had to go elsewhere. Mr. Mayor and the City Council, and I'm glad that you're spending a lot of money here in Greenpoint. Thank you. You understand how important this is, and now your administration really gets it, that we have to do more, that a neighborhood is not made up of only housing. You can't just build housing. You have to have all facets of development: commercial development, industrial development, retail development, so that a community can thrive. And I appreciate the fact, and that's why I'm here, because 25 years ago, we never realized at all that it would take off, and such a great job would be done by Brian Holman in making the Greenpoint Manufacturing Design Center a jewel and something to be replicated throughout New York City. And we're very proud of you, Brian. Thank you for that. Let's give him a round of applause. And so, Mr. Mayor, you've done the right thing. City Council, you've done the right thing. We don't get too much money in Albany to spend on these projects, but if I had it, I'd spend it just the way you did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. I want you to hear from three more members of the council, and they each bring a lot of commitment to this issue. First, someone who works very closely on these issues all the time, chair of the subcommittee on zoning and franchises of the Land Use Committee, Councilmember Donovan Richards.
All righty. I don't want to be repetitive because I think everybody has pretty much said everything, but I do want to give major kudos to Mayor de Blasio, of course, to our leader, fierce leader, who's been a fierce leader on this issue, our speaker, Melissa Mark-Viverito, and to Carl Weisbrod and the other deputy mayors, Alicia Glenn and others here. I will be very brief, but I just want to highlight, because I think it's a reoccurring theme here, when you look at these jobs, the industrial sector, in a city where basically we're seeing around 12% unemployment around black communities of color, in particular black and Hispanic communities, very important to highlight that the jobs that are in this particular sector are primarily people of color, the people working in these particular jobs, over 80%, and I think the speaker certainly mentioned that. And then secondly, I just wanted to add, once again, just a reoccurring theme. You know, it's a huge difference making $25,000 opposed to $50,000 a year. And we know that in particular in this sector, that many of these people in these jobs, in particular from our communities, need the income. We need to be able to stay in the communities that are changing. The ever face of the communities are changing. So these jobs play a critical role to keeping working families in their communities and helping them basically to support their families, but also to afford the basic necessities that many of us need, and that is milk, that is rent, the things that everyday New Yorkers want and people in across America. So protecting the IBZ today certainly is very important. I look forward as a zoning chair, obviously, of ensuring that the lax regulations, that zoning regulations that we've seen in the past, that those regulations are corrected. And the mayor and the speaker and everyone who spoke certainly correct that we have to protect these jobs. Hundreds of thousands of these jobs were lost over the past decade because of the lax zoning regulations, and we're doing everything in our power today to right those particular wrongs. And then just speaking of the investment, once again, the creation of Workforce One centers, I think, is something so critical that we have to speak about, because we have to connect our local residents to these opportunities. This is an opportunity that we cannot allow to pass by, and the investment by this administration in that is definitely something worthy of certainly continuing to promote. And then obviously the $70 million Industrial and Manufacturing Loan Fund serves as a huge indicator that this administration is very serious about addressing inequality and reversing the policies that have stunted growth, in particular in this industry, and prevented working families from obtaining the American dream. And I'll just leave with this in Spanish. No, I'm going to do English. But I once heard a quote that our workforce and our entire economy are strongest when we embrace diversity to its fullest. And that means opening doors of opportunity to everyone and recognizing that the American dream excludes no one. And I want to thank the speaker once again for her leadership and the council for their due diligence on this issue and leading, and Raju, because we would not be here certainly without the council's leadership. So I want to thank everyone. Let's get to work.
Thank you. Now, I was looking over Donovan Richards' shoulder, and Donovan, a really good phrase is a horrible thing to waste. So you had a good phrase in your remarks you did not use, but I'm going to tell the world about it.
Okay, go ahead.
Mission creep.
Yes. Oh,
I think it's a great phrase. And Donovan's remarks as written.
they gave me 1 minute, though.
Yeah, well, I'll pick it up for you.
Cut through all of it.
Because he said, I think it's a great point, that the industrial business zones were supposed to be industrial business zones. And then we saw a period of time in which there was mission creep, and they moved away from their stated purpose. The goal today is to restore them to their stated purpose and make that impact. Two more council members I want you to hear from. They've both been truly engaged on this issue. And the first, I can say that his district epitomizes a lot of the challenges of what the rising cost of land and the real estate crunch has made a real impact. And I know a little bit about his district because I had the honor of being his predecessor. Councilmember Brad Lander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you may know, he still visits from time to time.
Checking in.
As the mayor and the speaker and Chair Greenfield mentioned, as elected officials, we're stewards in the city of a historic tradition of building an inclusive economy through investments in our manufacturing and industrial base. And the godfather of that tradition is an immigrant himself, who's getting a lot of notice these days, but not for his work on manufacturing. And that's Alexander Hamilton, who was actually the first creator of an industrial park in this region, in Jersey, unfortunately. But he saw the value, and we have continued to see and steward and invest in that, from the era of sawmills through the era of textiles to the era of breweries and bakeries, and continuing today to an era of modern manufacturing, of flexible manufacturing, of high tech. And it's not only the good jobs that creates for a much wider set of people, that people with big ideas can come and make them here, and people willing to work hard from all over the world can come and make it here. It's also that those manufacturing zones carry so much more of our economy. The gas in our gas stations, the beer in our bodegas, the salt that salts our streets, the construction materials that build the city, they all come in through our industrial infrastructure. And if we don't invest in it and preserve it, we will lose, all of us, both those who come in to seek an opportunity and all of us who rely on this economy. Now, not far from where Hamilton and Washington led their famous retreat at the Battle of Brooklyn is a quite remarkable place, the Gowanus Canal. which has been for over 2 centuries a place of manufacturing. And you might not know it, if you just sort of drive by it, chasing the mayor to the Y. But manufacturing continues there. There's a third-generation company, Architectural Grill, which has invested in new modern manufacturing tools and is creating high-end metal grill work all throughout the city, throughout the region and beyond. Guild Fabricators, who make sets for Broadway. A whole series of artists and designers and new businesses as well, like Genius.com, which is just loading in the Gowanus Canal. Now, I had the great opportunity to tour the Gowanus with Deputy Mayor Glenn, and what we saw is a lot of threats, the threats you're hearing to that, because if we let simply highest and best use decide what's going to happen in the Gowanus, it will all be market rate condos in a very near future. But if we want those industrial businesses, if we want those maker jobs, then today's announcement really gives us the future. We can protect the Gowanus industrial business zone, as we're doing today, by preventing hotels and self-storage facilities. These new creative economy districts and mandatory mixed-use districts, some of which outside the IBZs might be places where we can mix maker uses and residential, including affordable housing. As a result of the announcements we're making today, instead of having all those uses rolled over by market rate condos, we can create and preserve an inclusive economy with good jobs and places for people to live that truly represent the diversity of this city. That would not be possible but for this really remarkable collaboration. I know you've heard a lot about it, but the fact that the administration, city planning, the deputy mayor's office, EDC, together with the council and our staff, and also want to shout out the borough president's office, because our deputy borough president has really been a champion on these issues. It's a big collaboration, and we're going to be really lucky as a result of having it. So thank you.
Thank you. Finally, Councilmember Rafael Espinal has been very, very active in protecting IBZs. And again, his district is one of the places where these cross pressures are so evident, and he's been a real champion for these businesses. Councilmember Rafael Espinal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin, I want to present you a piece of work from the Eastern New York IBZ. They asked me to present this to you. It's a leather folder.
Very nice.
You can write your speeches, write some notes down
you.
every evening. But this is just testament of the products that come out of these IBZs. They provide jobs to people who live in these neighborhoods. East New York has one of the highest unemployment rates, and we're right next door to an IBZ that currently employs 4,000 people. But because of the work that the mayor and the speaker and the council is able to do, we're going to be able to strengthen that IBZ to create more good-paying jobs. No, forget jobs, careers. Careers for people who currently live there. And I'm going to speak testament. You know, my parents came to this country 40 years ago, and the jobs they received were the ones in the North Brooklyn IBZ. And I remember as a child going there, and there were garment workers making a middle-class wage, were able to buy a home in Eastern New York, and that's what we want to see by strengthening these IBZs. This tie was made by a born and bred New Yorker. He's a designer and went to and hired someone in an IBZ to get this done. So we can see that these jobs are really important to making sure that we have a strong middle class here in New York. And it's going to be very important that we continue seeing the work of this council and the mayor in East New York, especially with the affordable housing plan that's coming in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you. And very stylish. All right. Okay, first we're going to take questions on this topic, then we'll take off on this topic first. On this topic.
I have a two-part question.
A little louder.
I have a two-part question. One is there a mechanism in place by which you say, like, no housing can be built in these zones? Is it just a matter of you won't approve proposals to build housing in these areas? And the other one is, if you or someone here could talk a little bit about the changing face of industrial, what are some of the new modern industrial types of companies?
So why don't Alicia and Carl come forward, and I will start with my framing, and you may add to it. Look, I think we're making a very simple statement of policy. We're not accepting private applications any longer. It's a fundamentally different approach. Anything that goes beyond the core strategic focus on industrial businesses will have to go through its own formal approval process, and we know that's a very rigorous process. So it's just changing the emphasis back to what it should be. I think, again, Donovan's point about mission creep, we're restoring the core concept, and we can do that as a matter of policy. To the larger trends, Alicia, Carl, or any further articulation on the mechanism by which we're doing this?
Sure. On the mechanism, again, we're not banning through a zoning action all any housing and manufacturing zones. What we are saying is that we will no longer look with any favorable any favor on a private developer coming in and saying we would like to convert this site to residential use. And so again, it's not a banning; it's a signal to the market that the policy of the City of New York is that these are precious resources. And as you know, we have a very aggressive plan to appropriately densify neighborhoods where we think housing should be built. And so these two things don't need to cannibalize each other. And I think there's been a real misperception out there that one is at the expense of the other, and we think that's absolutely incorrect. And these are precious resources, and we want to encourage great paying jobs in these districts. So we will no longer, and it would be subject to a land use process, obviously, and I think we're all pretty clear that nobody would want to approve that. With respect to the broader manufacturing and industrial space, I'd love to have Maria come up as well, because I think we are at a very interesting pivotal time where technology is converging with some of our more traditional manufacturing industries to create new opportunities for the city to really redefine what it means to be a modern 21st century manufacturing capital. So I think some really, really exciting data around the industries that we're seeing within the manufacturing and industrial space. So Maria, you want to talk a little bit about what's going on?
As the Deputy Mayor mentioned, I think what we're seeing, technology really disrupting different sectors, including manufacturing and industrial. And for us, it's a real opportunity, because what that means is that technology has the ability to make industrial firms here in New York more competitive, and that it also increases the demand for high-skilled jobs. And we see a advanced manufacturing kind of subsector of this industry really continue to blossom in New York City. Firms that rely on, that are enabled by different types of technologies, use 3D printing, use robotics, computer-controlled machining, and these are the types of things from, we have some firms here today like Black Box, who is in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. They make carbon fiber types of products, or Power Clip, one of the businesses that EDC has helped over the years, creating technologies to make places more resilient. And those are the types of investments, those are the types of firms that we want to continue to nurture. So as part of today's announcement, you'll see that we are launching a network of different types of services, plus a bricks and mortar advanced manufacturing center to do just that and help those types of businesses across the city.
Thank you. On topic questions. On topic, yes.
What we can do to help develop local bicycle manufacturing and also just transportation technologies. Obviously there's been major progress in the city in terms of transportation, and I'd like to see it continue.
All right. Bicycle manufacturing. I like that.
Wow.
That is a particularly honed question.
Well, it's a honed question. And I would say this is exactly why the city is making the kind of investments that we're making today, which is to allow the next fabulous bicycle manufacturer to be able to not just prototype that new bike, but also then have the industrial space that they'll need to grow and expand their business here and keep those jobs here. So one of the things, whether we're doing it in the Brooklyn Navy Yard or at BAT, is to make sure that people who come up with great ideas, like the world's perfect new lightweight urban bicycle, can then continue to make those products in New York City and not be forced out when their businesses get to scale. So I would say this is exactly the kind of thing we're focused on. It's not just supporting the technology that would allow you to make that fabulous bicycle, but then give you the actual affordable space so you can hire more people to make those bicycles here in New York City.
All right, now, press corps, we're spending over $100 million new dollars, and we're creating 20,000 jobs. Surely that must be of some interest. Last chance here. Someone have a question on this? There you go.
For the loan fund, can you just describe, are there particular qualifications a business has to have to get it, particular examples of types of businesses that could get it, and what are they intended to do with it? Is it start a business or?
So the fund is intended to address the issue of the lack of affordable real estate, industrial real estate. And so it'll be set up, we're initially targeting not-for-profit industrial developers, and what they can access through this fund, it includes capital dollars as well as below-market loans and potentially even a grant. And what we believe is by making those types of sources available, that we will actually spur the growth of close to 400,000 square feet of affordable industrial development. If you think about GMDC, a perfect type of organization, just the type of entity who this loan fund is intended to help, and they can use those funds for acquisition, rehab, and construction.
Okay, so it's for the developers as opposed to the individual nonprofits.
Nonprofit real estate developers, yes.
Mr. Mayor, what is the city going to do about bringing back those manufacturing jobs that they lost? And what lesson do we really learn from Williamsburg? Because this has a double effect. Not only does this change the landscape of business as far as losing employment, but also change housing. Because as these companies come in and buy these areas and turn into condos and hotels, nobody that lived in that neighborhood can afford it, so it drives people out. So what is the city going to do?
Look, my simple answer is we're not trying to recreate the economy of the past. We're trying to respond to today's economy, and I think these kinds of spaces being protected now and the kind of efforts we're doing to improve the circumstances for these businesses, to get them the educated and prepared workforce they need, to get them other supports they need and investments to really create, I think Brad said it very well, there's been a history of government making smart investments that set up the next big thing in economic development. That's what we're trying to do here. As to the affordability, that's why we have the largest affordable housing plan in the entire country, to create and preserve 200,000 units, enough for 500,000 people. So these are two parallel pieces that I think will work together, making sure we have affordable housing in the city and making sure we have good paying jobs.
Councilmember Lander's particular concerns about the Gowanus, your old, an area that you represented for a long time in the council.
Well, when you say his particular concern.
Well, about making sure that it's not becoming all market rate.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. And yeah, I mean, obviously it's a community I know very well and had the honor of serving in the council. Look, we need to keep some of the key industrial uses there that really fit there and create jobs. We have to remember about every part of this city. There's still a lot of working people in that community who need good paying jobs. And there's a lot of opportunity around the Gowanus Canal to do that still. So we have to protect that. And the beauty of this plan is it says, look, let's use each part of our community for what the highest impact would be. You cannot have a strong functioning economy if you don't have good paying industrial jobs. It's a key part of our economic mix. And Gowanus is one of the places we can achieve that. Okay, last call on topic, going once, twice off topic. Look like flowers blooming. If anyone who wants to leave can leave, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just came from Soho, where residents told me that they've been repeatedly calling 311, and now they're calling on you. There's a homeless encampment set up right now, right next to Vesuvio Playground. It's a very active playground with children, moms. People go there to bring them breakfast in the morning. What's being done about the homeless population, and how are these encampments able to pop up in these areas?
We have had two kinds of realities, and they've been going on for many, many years. Encampments which we do not accept, which means where there's actually a constant presence, physical presence, literally mattresses and other things there. We don't accept that, and we, with the NYPD and homeless services, very aggressively took down those encampments over the last month. Then we have some places that we call hotspots where the people congregate, and in many ways not appropriately, and we have to deal with that as well. So on this particular location, we'll follow up right away. I don't believe, from what I remember from NYPD, this is one of the truly long-term encampments that we dealt with for many years. Again, those have been dismantled and services have been provided to the people who were there. But any place that crops up as a new problem, we'll address very aggressively.
You were talking about economic inequality just at the beginning of this press conference. there are a large group of elected officials gathered in Upper Manhattan talking about how the delay to the 2nd Avenue subway development is a blow to their neighborhood, is a blow to Harlem, and represents, you know, a blow in the fight against economic inequality. I'm wondering what your response is to that, and if you would urge your representative on the MTA capital plan to not support it and to urge them to continue developing the subway.
Look, we invested heavily in the MTA in a way the city hasn't done before. We insisted on some key reforms. I think we were all surprised to hear some of the changes around the 2nd Avenue subway, and I think that's a conversation that must continue. It's clear that we need it to continue to build out. The first phase, let's face it, has taken a very long time. And we have to be honest about the fact that it's a complicated endeavor. But I do think it came as a surprise to many people that there was a change in the funding. And I think that has to be reconsidered to make sure that everything is being done to move Phase 2, despite the challenges and the complexities, to move Phase 2 as quickly as it can be done. Jonathan.
Mr. Mayor, last week you endorsed Hillary Clinton for president. Two-part question. First, can you just walk us through the process that you got to that moment, why you weren't able to do it in April and why you decided to now? And then secondly, have you spoken to the candidate after the endorsement or in the week or two prior?
Yes and yes. The first is, you know, I stood with a group of progressive leaders from around the country in May. We put forward a 14-point program, the Progressive Agenda. And I said very clearly, to me, this was the baseline for what we had to do to address income inequality. And that meant a huge amount to New York City and the future of New York City, to see wages and benefits improve, to see supports for working families, and particularly to see progressive taxation that's going to allow for all the investments New York City deserves from the federal government, like mass transit, affordable housing, education. So from my point of view, our obligation in this year, and I think this is a very different year than any one I can remember in recent decades, because there's so much focus on income inequality and so much focus on some of the fundamental changes we have to make. My view was that our candidates had to speak to these issues. And I think a lot of people who are progressive around the country felt the exact same way. When I've been, obviously, throughout the process over the last few months in a constant dialogue with the Clinton campaign, and one by one, Secretary Clinton did put out very powerful stances on a number of these issues. And the one that I think was crucial for a lot of us to hear a definitive answer on was trade. And she did that a few weeks ago in a very forceful manner. And that, to me, was the final piece of the puzzle. And that after that point, we started specific conversations with the campaign about rolling out an endorsement. And then at that point, I spoke to Secretary Clinton. We had a very good conversation about how the campaign's going and how to work together going forward.
Mayor de Blasio, there's a matter of a wager with the Kansas City mayor.
Yes, we will keep our wager. We'll keep our commitments to Kansas City, as painful as that is.
When do you plan to sing Kansas City and have some of that great barbecue?
Well, I don't know the mechanics of how we're going to do the exact transaction. I do know, I think there's a song I have to sing again. This is really becoming a bad trend. And we're going to celebrate the arts in Kansas City and our common commitment to the arts. So we'll be doing that probably sometime next week. But Mayor James has been a good partner in some of the national work we're doing, and his team won fair and square. I will remind you, wait till next year. I'm predicting we'll be in a position to make more wagers and to win them all. Yeah, right there.
Given the unfortunate fatalities, pedestrian fatalities this past weekend again this morning, could you talk about how you're planning to seriously address pedestrian safety going forward?
We are absolutely committed to Vision Zero. It is showing more success than ever. Year one, the success was extraordinary, lowest number of pedestrian fatalities since 1910. Year two, we've seen consistent progress on reducing traffic fatalities and particularly pedestrian fatalities. Remember, this is a new initiative that is deepening all the time. We're making more changes to traffic patterns and road design. The message that is being sent to people all over the city to be careful when you drive, to be mindful of the people around you, is being heard more and more. Obviously, the impact of the reduced speed limit and the speed cameras is being felt. So this is an effort that is growing and is becoming more effective. We're very committed to it, And every time we lose someone, we say, this is something that we need to keep reiterating to people, the care they need to take with driving and why all these standards matter, why that lower speed limit matters. And I think more and more people are getting it. Marcia.
There's a new poll where 55% of New Yorkers say they think the city is going in the wrong direction. What do you say to those people? And do you think that they're wrong?
I say to them that we have an economy that is very strong. We have 177,000 new jobs since I took office 22 months ago. That's something this city should be very proud of. We have a city that is getting safer all the time. You heard just yesterday from Commissioner Bratton, the safest October in almost a quarter century. We have a city that is moving forward with full-day pre-K for every child. There are so many positive indicators about the city. We'll keep doing this work and showing people what it means for their lives, but there's no question that this is a time when the city is moving forward.
Feel about the fact that your popularity has sunk to the lowest levels?
I recommend you all see Karen Hinton's quote about cotton candy, which I think was an apt analogy. The polls come and go. There's no question about the work being done and the impact it is having on people. That's what matters, and I know it will be felt. Rich.
Mr. Mayor, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries wants the city or the housing authority to rename the Tompkins houses for officers Ramos and Liu. Would you support that? Do you think that's a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. We'll obviously speak to the local residents. We want to respect their voices in the process too, but I think that's a very good proposal. Melissa.
What do you think about this 1% deal floated for the PPA? They seem upset about it. Do you think they did better at the end of the day by going to arbitration? And do they deserve more money? And is there still a chance you could go back to the bargaining?
So that is a process that's still going on, Melissa, so I'm not going to comment on it until it is complete. The arbitration process is still playing out. What I've said all along is I believe the pattern that we set for our uniformed services is fair. And obviously the vast majority of the uniform unions and their members thought it was fair because they voted for it. Jonathan. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Matt, I apologize.
What's been the biggest mistake of your mayoralty?
Matt, you ask cosmic questions, don't you? I would have to think about that and come back with a coherent answer. I think one thing we have to do better is explaining to people how this vision is affecting their lives, and that's something we will continue to do. Aaron.
Mayor, Governor Cuomo told a group of supporters that he sees it as his job to save New York City. Do you believe that he's correct that New York City needs saving? And if so, do you think that what he's doing is contributing to that, or is it interfering?
Again, 177,000 new jobs since January 1st, 2014. A city getting safer all the time. A city with now 65,000 kids in full-day pre-K. The city of New York is doing very well. We got a lot of work to do, there's no question. And we have a lot of work in this city, like in this country, to do to address income inequality. But in terms of any measure of how you judge a city and its success, there are a lot of areas where this city is literally doing better than ever. We have the most jobs, 4.2 million jobs, the most we've had in the entire history of this city, the highest population we've had in the entire history of the city. I think we're on the right track. Thanks, everyone.